Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, 15 years and 11 days after the 4+1 game, the Dodgers went 1+4 to erase another 9-5 deficit against the Padres. One of the most exhilarating wins of the season. So let's hurry up and get Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Dodger fans. I am Jeff Snider of Baseball Central. That's Vince Samperio. No, that's Vince Samperio of Chavez Ravine Fiends. And this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every day. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. This is the daily podcast covering the world champion Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue. We have a lot of fun stuff to talk about today. The Dodgers had maybe their best win of the season. Definitely one of the best wins of the season. It was one of those. It reminded me a little bit. I was saying it reminded me of the game against the Mets in 2019 when the Dodgers were down like 8-2 or something at one point. I was going solo that night because you were at the game, right, Vince?
Yeah, I was at the game that night.
Yeah, and so I was doing the podcast solo that night, and I was tired. And I'm like, I just want to go to bed. So it's 8-3, and I just like, I'm just going to record. I just won't say the score. I'm just going to record a generic podcast about a bummer loss, and nobody will be any the wiser that I didn't wait till after the game. So I record this thing, and by the time I'm done recording, it's 8-5, and I'm like, okay, they're still going to lose. Okay, so I didn't talk about them putting up a little fight. And then they come out and just lit up Edwin Diaz to win the game. And I had to re-record the podcast. My daughter Lindsay ended up being a guest on that episode with me because she stayed up to watch it. That's kind of what this one felt like. Like I texted you, Vince, during this game, and I told you, because a little behind the scenes stuff, we share our Restream account with Javi from Locked On Padres. And so when the Dodgers play the Padres, we have to take turns on who gets to do the podcast. And we knew we had to wait till after Javi was done. And so I'm like, man, this game's going to go almost 4 hours, and I'm recovering from an ear infection. I'm tired. I want to be in bed, and we're going to have a crappy loss to talk about. Oh my gosh, I'm complaining. I'm just hoping Vince is going to offer to go solo again, and then it happened. The comeback happened, and you know what? I'm not tired anymore. I've been ready for bed for 6 hours, and I'm not even a little bit tired right now, Vince.
Yeah, I was out tonight, missed the first few innings. I walk in to my place. I turn the TV on. Max Muncy's at the plate and homering, and so I got all the good stuff. So I'm hyped, ready to go. I already have a few complaints on the record from my neighbors. They might get another one after tonight when Bellinger hit that one, just because, not just because it tied the game, but because it was Cody Bellinger, because, the Dodgers keep their NL West hopes alive. And it was just a fun one of those where you kind of had written it off already, even if you hadn't, you never really write it off. You're not going to change the channel or anything. Obviously, if we were at the game, you wouldn't have left the game. But it's one of those where I had already kind of written it off just because we haven't seen the offense kind of have that kind of comeback. And like I said, probably one of the best wins of the year just for that simple fact that we saw the offense come back and it kind of all happened at once. And that made it a lot more fun.
Yeah, and the fact is the Giants won tonight too. The Dodgers are one game closer to being eliminated from the division titles. They still have a chance. They're only 2 games back. It could still happen. But, if they had lost this game, they go down by 3 games and basically the season's over. They're definitely in the wild card at that point. But it's not like this changes that much, but it just makes you feel better. Max Scherzer had a clunker every game, 2 clunkers in a row. We'll talk in a little bit. We're not going to start off on a bad note. We'll talk a little bit about whether we're concerned about Scherzer, but, Dodgers go up big, and then the Padres just battle back and score, I think, eight straight runs. I think it went from 5-1 Dodgers to 9-5 Padres. And when it got to be 9-5, I almost mentioned the 4+1 game because that was a score of the 4+1 game. And, with Neverett and Nomar in the booth, I was like, I'm surprised that Neverett hasn't, said to Nomar, hey, I remember the Dodgers being down 9-5 to the Padres one other time, and then Mookie hits the home run in the 7th. It's like, okay, maybe. And then the back-to-back homers in the 8th. I'm like, this might really happen. And, and then when Cody hit his, it's just like, that Cody Bellinger home run needs to be talked about, right, Vince?
Yeah, again, needs to be talked about because, like you said, the first one since August 11th. He's coming off the injured list after fracturing a rib or two, or however many ribs he fractured, crashing in Gavin Lux. He got the big hype on social media over his haircut and cleaned up the beard a little bit. So he had a lot of hype going into it. And it's something we haven't seen from Bellinger a lot this year. Obviously, the home runs came more earlier in the season. Hasn't really had that power here late in the season. But 96-mile-an-hour fastball up in the zone. Pagan probably wanted it a little higher maybe, but Bellinger turned on it, and it looked like a Cody Bellinger swing that we've seen in recent years. And it would, like I said, it was something that made me get up out of my seat at home and cheer, which I haven't, I don't usually do too much of that in the regular season, but this was one that got me out of the seat.
Yeah, and I had to keep from waking up my family. My wife is working in the morning. My kids have school in the morning, so they were all in bed. And I scared one of my cats, but I had to keep the volume down. And then Seager's home run, I thought it was his third double of the game. I thought, when JT had picked Chris Matt's pocket to steal third, I'm like, most of the time with two outs, that's not a big deal. But with Turner, you're like, oh, that is a big deal because he's not guaranteed to score from second. And then Corey, at that, I'm like, oh, he's going to score on that double, and then that ball just kept on carrying. That thing must have had some major backspin because that was a line drive shot, and just there was a point where I was like, this comeback's going to be fun to watch, but I don't know that I actually believed the Dodgers were going to win the game until Seager's home run went over the wall.
Yeah, it's one of those where you kind of wanted and needed to see them take the lead, especially with Turner in scoring position, how they had it with the one out, just because, just the way the nature of Dodger fandom is. Sometimes you think, man, that would really suck if they come back and end up losing that game. And it would have felt a little bit, maybe could have potentially felt like that 4+1 game, because the Dodgers did hit 4 home runs, tie the game up, but then the Padres scored in the next inning to take the lead. So when Nomar hit the home run, it was a 2-run home run that ended up winning the game. So it was one of those things where I wanted him to just take the lead right then and there and get it over with. And then, one thing that we'll probably talk about in the next segment too, but Kenley Jansen came out and just looked like Kenley Jansen of old. But we'll save that. But yeah, it was just, every ball that inning too was hit in the air. So like even Chris Taylor's fly out off the bat, you're like, oh, Tim never thought he was with the crowd for sure, because he announced it like it was a home run, even though it wasn't close at all. JT's ball one hopped the wall, which was really close to being a home run by itself. Who else? Mookie, I think, flew out.
Had a fly out.
Mookie flew out. So every ball was in the air. That inning was just, everyone was hoping it happened. And then when Seager hit it, I thought it was gonna be a double off the wall, especially with Myers out there. He didn't look like he knew what he was doing either time the home runs went over his head. So it was just overall just fun, just fun. That's really the only way to describe it.
Absolutely. We have so much more to talk about this game. And again, we want to tell you, we appreciate you guys making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. So when we come back, we'll talk more about Kenley Jansen. We'll talk about Gavin Lux's injury, talk about a bunch of stuff about this game. And eventually we'll get to the few little negatives to talk about. But whatever it is, keep it Locked On Dodgers. Hey, Dodger fans, this is Jeff with an incredible app that everyone who buys gas needs to know about. It's called Get Upside. Our listeners are making up to 25 cents for every gallon of gas every time they fill up. Just download the free Get Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now. Use promo code BASEBALL and get a bonus 25 cents per gallon on your first fill up. That's up to 50 cents a gallon cash back. Don't pay full price at the pump anymore. Get cash back using Get Upside. Just download the app for free and use promo code BASEBALL to get up to 50 cents a gallon cash back on your first tank. Some people who drive a lot are making as much as $200 or $300 a month in cash back, and there's no catch. The cash back gets added right to your account. You can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Get Upside app and use promo code BASEBALL to get up to 50 cents a gallon cash back on your first tank. That's code BASEBALL. All right, we're back. And again, thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Let's talk about Kenley Jansen. Vince, you brought that up before the break. And, Kenley was a pitch or two away from an immaculate inning. He just came in and, I tweeted almost jokingly that maybe the Padres needed to score 1 run in the 9th inning just because the final score in the 4+1 game was 11-10. And so just to make it a total parallel, maybe they need to score 1. And Kenley Jansen said, hey, Jeff, shut your stupid mouth.
He definitely didn't want to have that, didn't want to leave any doubt. And kind of going off what we talked about the other day, or what I talked about the other day with Blake Trinan, who hasn't had a clean inning in a while, hasn't had consecutive clean innings in a while. And Kenley Jansen just came in and dominated. I think, it's kind of hard. The Padres are a sinking ship or already sunken at this point. And it's one of those things where, that's a deflating loss, whether you're 10 games over 500, 10 games under 500, or around 500 like them and out of it. That's just a deflating loss to see a 4-run lead just get, kind of erased. It was demolishing, and I think they were just done by that point. But hey, Kenley Jansen, as a matter of fact, still looked good, whether they were whoever was at the plate. He still looked good, still was throwing strikes, had his command right away, and it was great to see. And it's just something that we've seen from Jansen all this month, really, and all kind of since he blew those saves out to the All-Star game. This is the Jansen we've seen on and off, but this is probably the best version we've seen of that. Yeah,
it was kind of wild to see Tatis strike out because he was really late on a couple 93 mile an hour pitches. And, I know Kenley has good movement and stuff. Kenley's not easy to hit, but being that late on it, I'm like, man, Tatis must just be toast. But then, so I was still nervous because okay, well, Tatis is injured or whatever. Striking out Tatis right now isn't that big a deal. But then Kenley said, you know what, I'll do it 2 more times. And yeah, I mean, the fact is, since those implosions against the Giants, Kenley has been outstanding, like one of the best closers in baseball. And he's a guy right now, the way he's pitching, it's not fluky. It's not like, he'll still occasionally walk a guy. He'll occasionally give up a hit, but he hasn't made us extremely nervous in a long time. And the way he's pitching, having those strikeouts, because Kenley's been great at soft contact the last couple of years. And, there was the game against the Mets last month or whenever it was. And you and I were in our group DM that we have with Justin Hicken, where he likes to come in and complain about things, and then I argue with him. It's our tradition. And, we were talking because it was a close game, and Alonso was coming up. And I said, I'm not that worried about Alonso. I'm more worried about Conforto because Kenley doesn't give up many home runs. I think he's only allowed 1 home run this year or something. It's pretty, it's a small number anyway.
4.
Is it 4? Okay.
Yeah.
So, but still a pretty darn small. And, so he's getting the soft contact, but throwing in those strikeouts too, like that. And this is a Padres team that isn't striking out the last couple of days. Buehler only had 5 strikeouts in 7 innings. Scherzer had 4 in 6 innings, almost 6 innings. And so this Padres team hasn't been striking out much the last couple of days. And Kenley said, you know what, they are now.
Yeah. And I'm just looking at the Baseball Savant page real quick. Max Scherzer pitched 6 innings. He had 9 swings and misses. Kenley Jansen threw to 3 batters and had 7 swings and misses. So that stuff was there. The swing and miss stuff was there. Touching on his month of September, he's thrown in now 13 games, has only allowed 1 run, had up there in strikeouts. And the best part too is you kind of look at his whole September, and his ERA's gone down, but the other part is his FIP has also gone down. So it's not like he's getting lucky. Like I said, it's not fluky. He's pitching well, and he's getting swings and misses. He's getting strikeouts, and he's looking like Kenley Jansen. Now, obviously, in a 1-run game and in a situation, you're going to be nervous with anybody. But at this point, I think Kenley's kind of earned maybe not full trust back from everyone, but at least full trust back from a majority of fans, or at least the ability to not boo him or think about like, oh man, Kenley Jansen's coming in. And even yesterday the night before when I was at the game, and Blake Treinen was in, and he was having his issues, I heard some clamoring from Kenley Jansen from some fans in the crowd. So I think he's starting to turn the tide a little bit.
Yeah, it's the grass is always greener, I guess. I guess we should talk about some of the negatives a little bit. Cody Bellinger is only in the game because Gavin Lux got hurt on what ended up being a triple for Will Myers that put the Padres ahead 6-5. Lux went basically full speed into the wall. He had the ball in his glove. He had already dropped it before he hit the wall. But I mean, it would have been a really, really good catch if he had made the catch. But then he went full speed into the wall. And after the game, Dave Roberts said it was a neck stinger, which is kind of like, I think Lux was crying. I don't know if I've ever seen a Major League Baseball player cry on a baseball field, but that's how much pain he was in. And I think he was probably scared because, if you ever played football, you've probably had a stinger. And I mean, another word for a stinger is crap. I think I'm paralyzed, And so maybe some pain and some fear or whatever, but it was good to see him walk off knowing what had happened after the fact. And, Robert said it'll be a day-to-day thing. We'll see what happens. But, he had kind of seemed like he had kind of taken over that starting center field spot. And maybe that is going to be a little bit more Bellinger's again for the next little bit. So it was good to see Bellinger get that hit because Lux has been on fire, and it'll be a bummer if he's down for any significant time.
Yeah, Stinger is one of those where you don't really know, and the day-to-day is kind of the definition of a stinger, because he could wake up tomorrow feeling great. He could wake up tomorrow feeling like he got in a car crash and everything's sore and be out a few days. So we'll see what happens. It does suck on his end if he does have to miss time or ends up missing, hopefully not into the postseason, but just because, like you said, the way he's turned around, the way he's taken over and really said, I don't ever want to go back to OKC again. Whatever happened in OKC, whatever happened there in the minor leagues, it cleared. Gavin Lux didn't want to go back there, and he showed it. And he had, like I said, taken over a spot, and with Chris Taylor kind of the neck hurting and maybe not hitting as well as he was earlier in the season, he took advantage of it. And now for that to kind of go away is what we've seen with this Dodger team. Anytime somebody gets hot, they might get hurt. So that's kind of what's happened here. But we'll see. Hopefully it is just a regular, normal stinger. He wakes up a little sore tomorrow, maybe sits tomorrow, and then, tries to get in here in the last 3 days of the weekend. But, yeah, like I said, good on Bellinger to see that. And then, Pollock getting the home run and just seeing everyone still contribute. Justin Turner had been a guy that we've talked about who had been struggling, Max Muncy. So all these guys that we talked about that had been struggling, contributed in this game. And that's what really matters here in the last, few days if they're fighting for the division. But now moving into October in the postseason is none of the regular season stuff matters anymore. If Cody Bellinger had the worst regular season of all time, but he starts hitting here in October and the Dodgers win another World Series, nobody's going to remember what his stats were in 2021. They're going to remember that he helped the Dodgers win another World Series.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been at that point with Bellinger for a couple of months now, where whatever he does, his season stat line is going to look ugly, and it doesn't matter at all. We've just been hoping he could get it going by October, and it's just been injury after injury. And but when you're recovering from broken ribs and turning on that pitch, maybe it forced him to simplify his swing. I don't know. I'm not a hitting coach. I'm not going to pretend to be, but whatever it was, if Cody Bellinger can do that a few more times, I'll be happy about that. And yeah, we can't stick on the negative too long after a game like this. AJ Pollock hit 2 home runs. This is the first time we've said AJ Pollock's name. We're 17 minutes and 28 seconds into this, and we just barely said the name of the guy who hit 2 home runs. AJ Pollock had a great game. Max Muncy set a new career high in home runs. Corey Seager, 2 doubles and a home run. Outstanding game for Seager. Just you had 4 or 5 innings in the middle that just super, super sucked. But overall, it was an awesome team win.
Yeah, like I said, they put up 4 early in the game. You were like, okay, that's a good sign, especially with Scherzer on the mound. Then didn't quite work out, and then they go down, and you're like, oh, man, this might not be as fun as we thought it was going to be earlier in the game. And then for them to come back, for them to have that, which is something, like we mentioned, we haven't seen too much, or at the very least, it hasn't been as present as it has in recent years, where they've had to fight, they've had to come back, and, comeback you remember. I honestly – there's been so many games, but I can't remember another comeback that was like, oh, man, that actually got me excited and hyped and ready to go. Obviously, this coming against the Padres late in the year with the chance for the division still available, it all adds to it. But it was great to see, and just, adds another cherry. That was win 102 on the season, and you go back to 2017, they won 104. You go back to 2019, they won 106. And those 2 years, you're thinking, man, this Dodger team is one of the best teams I've ever seen in my life. And it's just funny because with this team, there's not a lot of people saying that, but realistically, they're probably going to tie the 2017 team and still have the potential to get up there, 105. Or do they have potential for? 106.
Yeah,
so,
get to 106.
Yeah, they can tie the 2019 team.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So we're going to come back in a minute to finish up your first listen of the day of Locked On Dodgers. We're going to talk about some more good, a little bit of bad. We'll talk about Max Scherzer's performance and how concerned we are. We'll talk a little bit about an epic Dodgers tweet and maybe tie that in with the Padres collapse. And so keep it locked on Dodgers. BetOnline is back and better than ever. All eyes are on the gridiron as teams are back on to start another football season. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. With a new updated site and interface, even more odds, props, and contests, BetOnline.ag continues to be the number one source for everything football. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 100% welcome bonus. That's double your initial deposit just for signing up. Don't forget to use promo code Locked On. From football, basketball, boxing, baseball, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, your online sports book experts. Hey, did you know that there are 50 zillion different kinds of cars and you only own one or two of them? And guess what? Your auto parts store doesn't have parts for all 50 zillion cars because mathematically speaking, that's impossible. But you know who does have parts for all 50 zillion kinds of cars? rockauto.com, because they're a website. They're not bound by the physical constraints of this universe. Websites are unlimited. They can have, I don't know, it's probably just a big warehouse now that I think about it. But guess what? A big warehouse is big enough for all the parts your car will ever need. And that's what Rock Auto has. And so you don't have to go down to the auto parts store and can't find it. So they have to order it in for you from their big warehouse. Just order it from your own big warehouse at rockauto.com. It's a simple, easy to use website. Nice. You just find your make and model of car and it'll show you everything available. And you'll say, oh, look, they do have what I need. Oh, and look, it costs a lot less than it did at the auto parts store. Wow, this is a win-win. I sure am glad that the guys at Locked On Dodgers told me about rockauto.com. My life is better because of them. So if you want your life to be better because of us, go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck and write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they will know that we sent you and we will know that we made your lives better. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need, rockauto.com. We are back. We're going to finish up your first listen of the day of Locked On Dodgers. Thank you for listening. Let's talk. I guess we'll go. This one's not so negative. It was just kind of it was a wonderment for me. Like Tim and Nomar do a fine job broadcasting the game, but I was bummed for Joe and Oral that they weren't there for this. You know, we have the Absolute Madness game. We have, Into the Night to End the Night. You know, so many great Joe Davis calls. Oral Hershiser, Joe and Oral play so well together, and just to have something out of their control, keep them from being in the booth for this game. I was bummed about that on their behalf.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where you think about, I mean, early on when Joe Davis first started up, he started in a good year and they had some fun, but you would think about like, man, what would Vin Scully have called that? And then now when Joe Davis isn't there, because he's not there some of the times here in later in the year when he's doing football and other stuff. So you also think about that, regardless of who's in the booth, you're always going to think, man, what would Joe Davis have called? And then this one specifically, since he can't be there for other reasons, not prior engagements or anything, you're like, man, I wonder what he's thinking when he's sitting at home or I don't know how he enjoys games when he's not working. Is he sitting there thinking about, man, what do I say right here? Or, what I think about right here? Maybe we'll have to have him on one day and ask him what he does when he just watches baseball normally. But that was a thought and a few thoughts I saw on Twitter as well with similar sentiments.
Yeah. And, I love Joe Davis, and I feel like we've been pretty darn spoiled to go from Vin Scully to Joe Davis, totally different announcers, which is good. It would have not have been good if the Dodgers got somebody who was just trying to be Vin Scully part two, because nobody will ever be Vin Scully. Joe is his own guy, but he is excellent at what he does, and he's fun to listen to, and he's part of the family. And, Wednesday nights are Joe Davis is ours on Wednesday nights, like he's always there on Wednesday nights for us. And I'm sad that he wasn't there for this. I'm sure he is too. But I'm sure he and Oral enjoyed watching the game where they were. And, maybe it's one of those things where there's a little bit of relief. I don't know. Maybe that's me projecting my own human frailties onto Joe Davis, but I might be like, oh crap, I don't know if I could have come up with something great to say right there, but maybe Joe's so good. Maybe he did. Maybe he said it out loud in his living room. We should come up, you listeners, if you have ideas for what you think Joe Davis's call would have been, on Belly's homer and then on Seager's homer, tweet them at us, put the hashtag first listen, because we're your first listen of the day. And we'll see, maybe we'll read some of the best ones on tomorrow's episode. So let us know what you think Joe Davis's call would have been. Let's talk about the Dodgers tweet. The Dodgers. So the Padres hashtag is hashtag hungry for more. More of what has never been clear, because they've never accomplished anything in their franchise history. So I'm not sure what they're hungry for more of, but I guess maybe they accidentally got what their hashtag wished for, because this season they've basically gotten more of what they've gotten since they became a franchise 52 years ago. But the Sujo is so good on Dodgers Twitter, and she just tweeted out the picture of, I think it was after Seager's home run. Seager and Turner celebrating at home plate, and she just said, "Hungry for more." And like, I don't know what it is about teams jabbing other teams on Twitter. I definitely like it more than teams openly campaigning to make the Dodgers lose, like the Diamondbacks. "You're welcome, Giants." They should tweet that again after the lay down for the Giants tonight. "You're welcome, Giants." But I love this. Hey, hungry for more? Yeah.
Yeah, and it goes back. I mean, obviously, social media is kind of where the Padres rivalry with the Dodgers really kind of lives on the field a little bit, just based on what happened last year. But realistically, the Giants kind of erased all that this year and reminded everyone who is the actual best rivalry in baseball. And yeah, the hungry for more. It's just some teams go out of their way to, they're overly exaggerated when they throw jabs or when they, or do things like that, like the Padres tweet that's been getting roasted here the last week since they got eliminated with the "it's just April" with the sarcastic type of font with the capital letter and lowercase letter when they beat the Dodgers back in April, and everyone was saying, "Oh, it's only April." Plot twist, it was only April. But the other part too is just like the Dodgers get teams back or they do things, but it's always subtle. Hungry for more caption. That's it. If you know what it is, then you know why it's funny. But if not, it's still a good cap. Like it still works as a caption regardless. But if you know why that's the caption, then it makes it that much better. And it's subtle. It's quiet. Obviously, every team doesn't always do outward and outlandish things, but I think the Dodgers do the best subtlety of doing little things like that or the captioning.
Yeah. And something about the Padres, like, it's not the rivalry, but they've just, and their fans have just been so obnoxious. That swag chain that seems to have been the nail in their coffin. I think their record since starting the swag chain is like 1-94 or something. So maybe it wasn't their best idea, but they're just so obnoxious that something about that, it's been fun to watch the Padres implode. I give Javi from Locked On Padres a hard time, but I really do enjoy seeing him sad, and I actually watched yesterday's episode of Locked On Padres on YouTube, and Javi said what a lot of Padre fans have said, that basically they just want the Padres to play spoiler for the Dodgers. I think most Padre fans actually want the Padres to get swept by the Giants this week, just so the Dodgers don't win the division. And it's just such an insecure little brother thing that it makes me really happy to see them suck so bad right now. And, Jace Tingler, or as our buddy Clint Pasillas over at Dodger Nation called him, Hingle McTingleberry. I'm a big fan of that name. Good job, Clint. He's probably going to be out of a job soon. I mean, he may not make it through the night. By the time you guys watch this, he might be out of a job after that implosion. I don't know, something about this happening to the Padres. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And it's man, imagine if the Giants weren't where they were at and the Dodgers were, had already clinched and everything was happening. Like, it would have been that much more fun. But I think it's been a collective dunking on the Padres, not just by Dodger fans, just baseball fans in general. I for work, the walk-off stuff I've posted, when the Padres were eliminated, they're getting flamed in the comments by a lot of people that weren't just Dodger fans. I think they didn't become villains. I think their fans really pushed the thing of, "Oh, we're the best team ever." The media hyped them up a lot, and then it all kind of fell on their face. And Manny Machado is probably one of baseball's villains, I guess, whether he deserves it or not, depending on how you feel about him. Fernando Tatis Jr. is probably more loved than anything, but it's still when someone's that good and that out, no one's gonna hate on Mike Trout when his team doesn't make the playoffs every year, because he just plays the game. We know Tatis, not that I mind it, but he's out there. He's doing the little stutter step and the bat flips and everything else. And then when it all kind of comes crashing down on you, just like, oh man, like that, I don't know. We talked about it before. Like the energy, it's hard to keep up over the course of the season. And right now, I don't even think they're going to show up in San Francisco. So I'm not really too, I don't expect them to do much this weekend at all anyways, but it would be funny if they ended up being the reason the Dodgers have a chance at the division title.
Yeah, it would be. And, if the Dodgers win today to sweep the series, then the Padres will go into San Francisco needing a sweep to get back up to 500 for the season. So maybe that motivates them to get to 500. I don't know. Chances are, I think the players are going to play hard. I think the fans just want the Padres to roll over. I think Major League Baseball players are going to go out there and try to win every game. And, once they're playing the Giants, they'll want to be the spoilers against the Giants. The only problem is the Giants are a much better team than the Padres. And a lot of times that comes into play in a baseball game. But Dodgers are a much better team than the Padres too. And the Padres almost won this game. So I just feel good that if the Dodgers don't win the division, it will be because the Giants won it, not because the Dodgers lost it. The Dodgers, like you said, they're going to finish somewhere between 102 and 106 wins. Wherever they finish, it's going to be one of the best seasons in Dodger history. If the Dodgers win 106 and the Giants win 107, that's not a failure of a season. If the Giants had won 107 games each of the last 8 years, the Dodgers would have 0 division titles in that time. It's just sometimes other teams outgrade you, but this has been a legitimately great Dodger team, not a perfect team. I talked about that the other day in my solo episode, that this team hasn't been perfect, but a team doesn't have to be perfect to root for them and get excited about them. This is a really good team. And if they can get it together, it could be a team that repeats, even going in as a wild card, which seems likely. It could be a team that repeats as World Series champion, because the Dodgers are the most talented team in baseball. That hasn't totally showed up in the record. It's mostly shown up in the record. But I still honestly believe the Dodgers are better than the Giants, especially with Brandon Belt down. The Giants have been hit by some injury. Giants scored 1 run against the D-backs tonight. It's not like they're a juggernaut right now. And so I like the Dodgers' chances in the division series against the Giants, whether they get there as the division champions or get there by beating the Cardinals in the wild card game. I like the Dodgers' chances, and I'm excited for an October run.
Yeah, I think this game got me hyped. I'm not that I wasn't hyped, but I was kind of like, all right, I'll get hyped next Wednesday. And now I'm like, all right, I'm hyped for the rest of this season, because there's a chance again. There was not going to be a chance if they hadn't done what they did last night. And now there's a chance, there's hope again. And hey, you never know what happens.
Yep. And speaking of next Wednesday, we promised we'd get to Scherzer talk. We won't spend too much time on it because this is a positive episode. But Vince, are you worried about Max Scherzer?
I'm not worried about Max Scherzer. It's just kind of like what I talked about with Buehler the other day. When it comes down to it, when it gets to October, I think he'll be completely fine.
Yeah, this seemed like a command issue. Scherzer was missing his spots, throwing way too many fastballs right down the middle. We saw a few times when he hit his spots, he was still pretty unhittable. I saw, slider right on the inside corner to a lefty, like that pitch is unhittable, And so when he was hitting in his spots, his stuff was still good. It was just a command thing. And there's not much reason to think a command issue is going to carry from one start to the next. It does suck that this did come right on the heels of his bad start in Colorado. And so it does, it tries to compound on itself, kind of like we talked about with Buehler having, those bad starts bunched together. I almost wish there was a little bit more time left in the season just so Scherzer could get one more regular season start, but we'll just see him against the Cardinals on Wednesday or against the Giants on Friday next week, whichever, or I guess the Giants on Monday, I guess. Probably not. Dodgers probably aren't going to win the division outright, I guess. So we'll see Scherzer on either Monday or Wednesday, and hopefully he'll be Cy Young candidate Scherzer again. And like you said, he's the kind of guy who steps up in big games, so I feel good about it.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's going to wrap it up. You have any final thoughts, Vince?
No, I'll be at tomorrow night's game, so I wouldn't like them to go down, but I would like more home runs.
Yeah. All right, we want to thank you all one last time for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. For your second listen, maybe check out Locked On Bets. Betting on baseball doesn't have to be a guessing game if you listen to the new Locked On Bets podcast hosted by your boy Q and handicapping expert Lee Sterling. Get daily picks, blowout specials, wrong team favored picks, and Lee Sterling's lock of the day. Follow the Locked On Bets podcast brought to you by BetOnline.ag, wherever you get your podcasts. If you aren't watching Locked On Dodgers or listening to Locked On Dodgers every day, you could add 1 or 2 days to your rotation each month. That would be awesome. You can, if some days you want to listen on the podcast, sometimes you want to watch on YouTube, do both every day. That's my main suggestion. Listen and watch every day. And if you have multiple phones, listen on multiple phones. Just make every day, all day, Locked On Dodgers Day. But at least try to catch us every day. That would be awesome. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Locked On Dodgers. You can follow Vince on Twitter at Vince Samperio. I am on Twitter at Snidog, and the DMs are open in all of those places. Our email address is lockedondodgers@gmail.com. And our phone number for voicemails or texts is 323-863-LOCK 5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Have a good one.